Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Camera Brave Show. My name is Marissa, and I'm so excited that you're here with me for today's episode. Today, we're going to be diving in to something that's a little deeper and a little heavier as opposed to what we typically talk about on this show. But stay with me because there's a reason that I'm going to challenge you with these questions that are ahead. Before we dive in, I'd like to ask for a quick favor from you. If you're listening to this show on Apple Podcast, if you would please take a quick moment of your time and leave me a review. It really helps as we're still growing and beginning to build this Camera Brave Show foundation, and it allows us to attract other listeners and guests, and it really makes a difference. So if you wouldn't mind taking just a quick moment of your time to leaving a review, I would be so truly grateful and genuinely appreciative of your time. So why are we talking about heavy topics today? There are two in particular difficult questions that I'm going to challenge you to ask yourself. But first, I want to explain why. The first reasoning behind this is because when we have something that we're afraid of and we allow it to kind of stay locked up in this closet of our mind, we're giving it the power to grow and to get darker and scarier. Versus when we talk about it and we bring it out of that dark closet and we start to shed light on it and start to examine it and analyze it and look at it for what it is, instead of allowing it to grow into this big, scary monster that gets so much bigger than the thing that it actually is. When we look at our fears and we can examine them in this way, it allows us to move past them and work through them. And at the very least, it gets it out of that dark corner of our mind where it's given more power to grow and to have more control over us. Whereas if we start talking about it, start poking holes at it and bring it into the light, we're gaining that control and that power over the fear. So that is the first reason why we're digging into this. The second reason why we have to get a little bit deeper in this episode is because there are a lot of surface level fears that you may recognize going through your head, and there's really a deeper root fear that you may not even recognize that you are feeling and that is having this kind of power over you and keeping you stuck. And when we start to examine these surface level fears, we can get deeper to the root fear and bring it into the light and start to remove some of the fear for it. So the reason we're talking about this topic right now, I just released a webinar on the 5 most common pain points that I see fellow entrepreneurs struggling with when it comes to showing up on camera. So these are things like, I hate the way I look on camera, or I'm terrified of going live, or I'm afraid my mind will go blank. Those are a few of the 5 most common pain points that I hear over and over again. And these may be thoughts that you're aware of that may be running through your head. However, all of these are really just surface level thoughts that are attached to a deeper fear that you may not even recognize that you're holding on to. So whether you're at the beginning and you haven't even started your video journey, or if you're a little further down the road and you may be creating some types of content, these questions still apply to you because they're going to challenge you to either recognize what is keeping you from getting started or recognize what is keeping you from moving further along. So the first question that I want to challenge you to ask yourself, what are you afraid of? So I want you to ask yourself, what am I afraid of? Not how do I feel about video, or not what are my thoughts on showing up on camera, but what are you afraid of? Because when you can get to the root of that and recognize it, you can start to do something about it. So there are bigger root fears that are so much deeper than I hate the way I look on camera, or I'm afraid my mind will go blank. In reality, there's most likely going to be a deeper fear that's perpetuating that surface level fear that you're actively thinking of. Some of the fears that I see most commonly associated with showing up on camera are a fear of being seen, or a fear of rejection, a fear of judgment, that people will either see your content and reject it, or they'll pick it apart, or that you don't have as much knowledge or expertise to deserve to be on camera and talking about what you know. Those are the deep rooted fears. And when you ask yourself, what am I afraid of? Keep digging until you hit one of these, until you can recognize which root fear is holding you back. My root fear that was holding me back for years was that I was afraid to be seen. The irony of this is that I held on to this fear and I let it control me while I was being a spokesperson on camera. So I had been representing brands and doing commercial work and spokesperson work for years. But one day it kind of dawned on me that I wasn't promoting myself as a spokesperson, that I would go to the studio and I would do these commercials and I would feel good. I would feel like I knew what I was doing. I would get into my zone and I felt confident about my ability to do the job. But then when those commercials would release and those videos would come out, I wouldn't look at them. I could never watch them. I wouldn't promote myself as a spokesperson, even though I felt like I was competent and there was good money in it. And I never realized that the fear of being seen was what was holding me back. So while I was able to show up to the studio and deliver, I was not able to promote my work on my own social media or even tell my friends and family about it. I didn't ever show anyone the videos that I did. My mom would actively watch them because she is my biggest fan. But aside from her, I wouldn't share these videos with anyone. I acted like they didn't happen, even though when I was there shooting them, I felt good and confident about them. When the actual video came out, I wouldn't share it. And then I realized that I had these surface level thoughts of, well, I don't like to listen to myself back. I don't like to watch myself back, or I don't want to promote myself too much. Those were the surface level thoughts that I was aware of that I was having. But there was a root fear of being seen. I was comfortable delivering on camera, but I wasn't comfortable with my friends and family seeing the work I was doing and feeling some type of way about it and having an opinion on my delivery. I was confident enough to deliver and earn a paycheck for it, but not confident enough to get feedback, or what if they were judging or rejecting. I was afraid of people looking at my work. A fear of being seen held me back for years. And the irony of all of that is that it was while I was still on camera. And I recently was talking with a fellow entrepreneur who is going through a very similar thing. So she started off as a model. So she is obviously very comfortable in front of the camera. However, she's also an entrepreneur. She has 2 different side businesses that she hustles with. And she said that she follows my page because I had an honest moment with her. I was like, why are you actively here on the Camera Brave page? You are amazing on camera and you do incredible work and you've been comfortable for years. So I'm honestly wondering, are you just supporting me as a friend, or why are you here on the Camera Brave page? And she said that when it comes to talking about her business, she completely freezes up. So while she's comfortable on camera, she can work it in front of a camera. She's engaging, she lights up, she has this beautiful personality that shines through. She's not able to translate that into talking about her own work. Because when we're talking about ourselves or our business, it requires a level of vulnerability. And when we can ask these questions of, what am I afraid of? Am I afraid of being vulnerable? Am I afraid of people seeing me? Then we can start to do the work to move past them and to continue growing. So this first question is heavy. And if you're new here, you may be saying, who is this girl and why is she asking me to get this deep? But I want to encourage you to challenge yourself and ask this question, because the more you want to run from this, the deeper hold that fear has over you. Sorry to say it, but it's true. Sometimes when we're first stumbling upon and giving a name to these fears, it may feel like you just had the wind knocked out of you. It may feel like someone just sucker punched you, because it may be so true to your core that it's hard to recognize, and it's so hard to really think about why we are allowing things to hold us back. But the first question is, what are you afraid of? And it takes courage to ask yourself this. And if you're still listening and you're still actively interested in this episode, then I want to applaud you, because it's not easy to do this sort of self-work, but it is necessary in moving forward. I had to ask myself, why was I not self-promoting and trying to grow my own audience based off of this skill that I'd already monetized? And until I could recognize that I was afraid of my peers, my friends, and my family seeing me on camera, if I hadn't come to that realization, Camera Brave would have never started, because I had to realize what I was afraid of and figure out a way to get through it, and realize that what I had to offer was greater than this fear of being seen. That the potential of what I could tap into and what I could create with Camera Brave was so much greater than my fear of my peers seeing me, because I wanted to grow far beyond my friends and family. I want to grow a company and a business and work with clients. And once I started actually attracting clients to my page and people who were there because they wanted to learn and grow and they were hungry, they weren't there to judge me. They weren't there to critique the way that I looked and what I was saying. They were there to learn. And once I started just getting a couple of those people on my page, I started to realize that my fear of being seen was dissipating. Everything that I've built, the company, the podcast, the social media, the course, the coaching, all of that wouldn't have been possible if I couldn't get past whatever I was afraid of. And your fears are valid. I'm not trying to have you minimalize them or say that they're not important or true. If you're feeling some type of way, of course you have a right to feel that way. But I'm talking about the fears that are keeping you stuck and that have a power over you. This fear of being seen kept me from growing, kept me from promoting. Every time I was live in the studio, I always had the desire to share what I was going through, but not with people that knew me, not with people that would actually look at it. I was terrified of being seen. I know I keep repeating myself here, but I want it to encourage you to really dig into what you are afraid of, and not those surface level thoughts that you may be actively aware of that are running through your mind on a daily basis, but those deeper root fears that you feel in your gut. Those are the ones that have the strongest hold over you. The second question I want you to ask after what are you afraid of is, what is holding you back? Some of you have not started your video marketing journey yet, and you're in the right place. Some of you are allowing fear of equipment or not having content ironed out, not knowing your messaging or your audience. Some of you are allowing those sorts of thoughts to hold you back. Others of you have already started on your video journey. And those of you, I really want to listen to this part, because you may think, I'm already creating content. I'm putting things on YouTube, or I'm showing up on my stories. I'm actively moving along this video journey. And those of you, I want you to really think about what is holding you back from taking the next step. Are you getting too comfortable with where you're at? Do you have a long list of ideas of things that you want to incorporate, but you haven't gotten around yet to? If so, really ask yourself, what is keeping me stuck? Or if you're at the very beginning, what is keeping you from starting? Is it that root fear? What was keeping me from starting was that I was caring about what everyone thought about the content I was putting out there, because my fear was being seen. So what was keeping me from starting was the thought of other people looking at my content. So to get started, I had to let go of that. I had to come to the realization that the people that I was afraid of to look at my work weren't the people that I was creating content for. I was creating content for people I hadn't even met yet. I was creating content for entrepreneurs and fellow business owners that I didn't even know their names or their faces, but I knew that they were out there and I knew that they needed help creating videos. I knew that they needed someone to help them tap into that potential that they had to start their own video marketing journey, even if they thought that was something that would never be for them or that was never possible before. The second question is, ask yourself, what is holding you back? And is it something you can let go of? Is it something you can work through? Is whatever that is holding you back more important than the potential you have if you could move past it? And if you could get to the other side of that fear and keep pushing forward? That's the question that I want you to ask yourself. What is holding me back? And is that more important than the potential I could have moving forward? Are you going to let that fear be greater than what could be on the other side of that fear? Because until you can recognize the fear and work to get through it, you're never going to get to the other side of it. You're going to continue creating surface level thoughts that kind of avoid what that root fear is, because sometimes the root fear is so vulnerable and it's such an intimate thing that we don't even want to think about it. We don't want to put a name to it. When I recognized that mine was the fear of being seen, it felt like I lost my coat of armor. It felt like such a raw and vulnerable thing to admit that it like made me blush. Those are the types of things that when you can work through them, call them out, and decide that your potential for what is next is greater than that fear, that is what's going to change whatever you feel stuck on or whatever you're struggling to get through. Oh, this is a tough episode to deliver to you, but I felt so compelled to talk about this and to share my vulnerable story with you because I think it's going to inspire you. I think it's going to help some of you realize that analyzing these surface thoughts and getting deeper into them is going to change something so massive for you. That when we're recognizing what we're holding on to and what we're afraid of, and we're letting it out into the light, that real change can happen in your bones. If you've made it to the end of this episode and you're wanting more, you're wanting more help to work through these fears, you're having a tough time really putting a finger on it, or you want encouragement to move forward because that fear has such a hold over you, then I have something for you. At the time that this episode is releasing, I will be just about to open up my 6-week course, Camera Brave Academy. It is a digital course that's completely online that I walk you through live. So each week, a new module is released that has a video and a worksheet and an assignment for you that'll only take about an hour of your time each week. However, the content is specifically curated to slowly help you move forward without shoving you into the thing that's terrifying you. So we are going to push you outside of your comfort zone, definitely throughout this program. However, it'll be in a safe community and with other people by your side going through very similar feelings that you are having, that are all just trying to move to that next step on their video journey. If you're listening to this right as it goes out, go over to camerabraveacademy.com and see if this sounds like it's for you. If you're resonating with the episodes of the Camera Brave Show, and if this content is stirring something inside of you, go over to the website and see exactly what transformations this course will offer for you. See exactly where you could be in 6 weeks from now if you finally took that first step and signed up for something that's so much greater than whatever is holding you back. And if you're catching this episode not live and it's a couple of weeks or months later and you are still interested, go on over to the website and you can sign up to be on the wait list. So that way, the next time I launch it, you're notified and you can jump right on in. Thank you so much for joining me for today's episode. If you made it to the end, congratulations. And if you did this work, or if you're planning on doing this work, you should do it tonight. Don't put it off too long. Congratulations, because this is not easy work that you are doing. This is groundbreaking work that has the potential to alter the trajectory of your entire future when you're asking yourself these questions. Because I 100% would not be here talking to you right now. I wouldn't have the guts to have created this show if I didn't realize what I was afraid of and decide that my message and what I had to say to the world was more important than my fear of my tiny circle judging me or seeing me. I knew that the potential of who I could impact, who I could talk to, and what I could do was greater than that fear. Thank you so much for joining me. You can find me over at Camera Brave on Facebook and Instagram. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your week, and I'll see you next time on the Camera Brave Show.